Welcome to a new episode of the Cartridge Club, where we discuss our game of the month with members of the Cartridge Club community. For the month of August, the Cartridge Club Patreon selected Papers, Please. Joining me on the show, we have Kevin and Richard from Retro Fandango. If you played along, you can always share your own experiences in our community's Discord or across social media by using the hashtag Cartridge Club. Before I start the show, on behalf of the entire Cartridge Club community, I'd like to give a huge shout out to our Patreon Club backers like Joe Boyce, Barrett on Mars, Christopher Rohr, Dean Lasagna, Ross Rango, and Caleb J. Ross. To our backers and Patreon supporters, thank you. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter for the Cartridge Club, please look at how you can do so at patreon.com/Cartridge Club. All right, so Kevin, why don't you start us off with your opinion of the game?
Well,
Wait, are we starting then?
Yeah, that's it. We're starting.
Is this
right
the
now.
show?
This is
Yeah.
it.
Where's the
That's
intro?
Retro Fandango, and then we go.
Yeah.
So overall, like just my overall opinion of the game is I really enjoy it. I think it's a clever game. I like the premise. I think it takes a special type of person to kind of think outside the box to create this kind of game. Like if I was to come up with a game, my thinking would be, oh, you'd be the guy trying to get into countries like James Bond or something like that, and you're trying to like sneak by and come up with like better passes and passports, and that's where my mind would be. But this guy, what's his name? The guy that made the game,
Lucas Pope.
Lucas Pope. Like to think of like a desk job and making that into a game, basically, where you're the guy on the other end. You're kind of like, you have these people's lives in your hands and you could decide whether they can come into the country or not. And there's consequences and all that stuff. So I just think it's a great concept and it's executed well.
Yeah, it is a great concept. Unique perspective, like Kevin said. I do think that it even beyond the concept, like if you got the idea, all right, we're gonna have you play as a border patrol agent, checking passports and all that, the level of detail that he goes into in terms of, okay, well, you got to check the passports, but you also need an ID card, but you also need a vaccine card, but you also need this, you also need that. And it constantly just keeps building and building and building. I mean, it really seems like a lemons to lemonade situation. Like this guy, I don't know his story, but maybe he was, stuck in one of these lines going through customs and you realize this sucks, I hate this. You take the time to think of it from the perspective of the agent there who's checking all this stuff and figure out, I can make a game out of this. That's kind of neat. But it really just is an impressive game. There, you have very little in terms of what's on the screen and what's at your disposal, but to make it more complicated and make it a lot about time management and physical management of that space that you have. It reminds me a lot of was it Resident Evil 4 where you had to put stuff in your suitcase?
Yeah,
You have that little
in my head,
workspace
too.
and you get all of your papers. Sometimes you can move them off to the side, but you're always something's on top of something and you can't click it when you need it. And you stamp the wrong document, and it really does come together very well. I like it. It's a good game. My opinion of the game is I played it many years ago, probably not when it was first released, but a few years after. I probably heard about it from Kevin. I enjoyed it. I was surprised by it. And it was actually fun going back to it for this, because sometimes I'll play a game like, I don't really need to go back to it. But this one, it was still kind of fresh, even though there are some scripted parts to it. It still gives you enough random encounters, I guess you would say, that make it really fun to go back to. So it's a game that I can still, in a couple of years, probably go back to again and find some enjoyment in.
Yeah, there's definitely some like RNG with this game that you can't just be like, okay, I know that this person's gonna be here every day. It's gonna be changed up. Like there's a few times I've had it where you get paid per every person walking through the gate, right? That you stamp and you let through. You get like,
Yeah, you get paid based on how many people you
Mhm.
process.
There's been a couple times where one day I think I had like the first 5 people are getting rejected right off the bat. So I don't know if you
Mhm.
get paid per rejections too.
I,
You can get a bonus on detainees,
yeah,
but
I think it's
I
every person you process, you
okay.
get. Yeah.
Right.
Um,
Because yeah, I think I had one day where just about everybody got rejected. And when I did admit somebody, I was surprised because I thought there was a pattern going. And then I did get penalized. There was something I overlooked.
Kevin, I want to say I think my history of this game goes back to when we did like E3 broadcasts when we used to do Cartridge Club Live, and we did a PC.
Wow.
Remember we did a PC show and you were
Yes.
on it?
Okay.
I want to
Yes.
say this was on there. It might have been released before because I see this game came out in 2013, but it might have been like a new to Steam or new to
Yeah.
whatever kind of release, you know?
I think so. Yeah. I think it was like 2013. I think was like what do they call that? The Windows browser version or
Mhm.
whatever. And then, yeah, the guy got some traction from that and actually made an official Steam release, I think.
Yeah. Because I think that's the first time I ever heard of it, and it's very interesting back then. I just forgot about it because I'm not the biggest PC gamer. This fun fact: this is my first ever Steam purchase.
Oh, wow.
Everything I've gotten
Really?
from Steam and Epic are all just the free giveaways. So this is actually my first purchase, and it was on sale last month. So that's another reason why I think I was pushing for Papers, Please to win it because it was like $5 for a purchase. So.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, the month of August was the game's 10th anniversary. If it came out in 2013, it should be 11th anniversary. Maybe I misread the date. I don't know. Forget it. Edit that out. It was either the
Okay.
10th. It was either the 10th or 11th anniversary, and I think the game went on sale for a day or two for $2. So that was even an extra deal
Mhm.
if you got in on that. But I didn't find out about that until later. But anyways, I already had the game. So
Well, I'll say this. I have the wiki open as we
okay,
speak, and it was the 10th anniversary for Windows and Mac operating
okay, that
system.
makes sense. Right.
So,
Okay. Yep.
10th anniversary, you were correct.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
Good. I like being
Um,
correct.
yep. Uh, so it was. I remember when it was revealed, it was very interesting because it is very much There's a lot of suspicions. It's a. If I remember correctly from the trailer, it was kind of a very dark trailer where it's like you're rejecting people and it seems like you're kind of cruel. A lot of this kind of reminded me with like some of the questions, Kevin, is when we came up to Barry, me and Q Dog, we drove through in the Canadian side border, the passport agent letting us in, or the border agent there was being very friendly every once in a while. Oh, what you doing? You go, oh, we're going to a retro game show. Oh, cool. And then he would just repeat the same question over and over to
They're
try to
trying to
get
catch you in a lie.
yeah, try to get you in a stumble, basically.
Yeah.
Didn't happen so much from the American side back. We were much more, lazy, I guess. But the Canadian side, they were rejecting, well, not rejecting, but, giving us a little bit more harder time
Well,
entry into.
people from Wisconsin, we have to like
And
watch it a
Illinois,
little bit.
I had some fibs in the
Is it
car with me. So, yeah.
isn't like Wisconsin? Isn't that like the most there's the most crime in depending on what news channel you watch from the United States? It's either a lovely state with beautiful trees and lakes, or it has the worst crime rate in all of
Oh,
the lower 48 states.
that's just Milwaukee, probably.
Maybe
Where I live.
isn't it Milwaukee and Minnesota? Oh wait, no, that was
No,
wrong. Okay. Anyways,
no.
sorry.
Now you're mixing the states and the
It's a
cities up here.
good topical.
Yeah, yeah. Anyways, yeah, so this was my first time playing it and I've enjoyed it. It's become one of those things where I will play just like a day or two, even though these days are only like 5 minutes a piece.
Mhm.
As an
Right.
example, like I came home last night after seeing Beetlejuice 2, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get a couple more days in. So I'm up to like day 16, and I'm always stumbling here and there with a couple things, but I've learned that as long as you only make like you're allowed like 2 goof ups a day
Right.
to go before you get penalized, right? So it's always kind of just try to be. I take it easy until I get the 2 mess ups, and then I'm being really a little bit more serious with it because I'm trying to process as many people as possible. But yeah, I've been really enjoying this game, playing it, just taking it easy. I wish I had a little bit more. I guess it's would be less of the game, right? If I could make it easier on myself, like if I had more space on my desk, or like there's some things I still haven't figured out. Like I'm still stumble on the fingerprints. If I remember, that's definitely one of the things because they'll be like, "Well, hey, your name doesn't match on your passport," and they're like, "Oh, I have 2 names." Okay, well then you give them a fingerprint scan, and it'll say their name, and it'll have like no matching alias, right? That's
No
the word.
known
Aliases.
aliases.
Oh,
Yeah.
no alias. So there's been times where I'm like, okay, well it matches, and then I process it and I get fined for saying like no whatever alias or of this person. And then there's times when I reject it and I get the same thing. To like there was no reason to reject this person. So I'm like, there's been a couple things I still haven't been able to figure out. Like last night, I finally figured out the weight, where it's like the person's weight was off, which can be a hint
Mhm.
that they are carrying something like a weapon on them or medicine. That's like one case when I did a scan on somebody that they had medicine tied to their leg. But that's something got past me until yesterday. I saw that on the very bottom right hand side of my desk, if you will, there's actually a small tiny scale, and that went way over my head
Right.
until last night. So, in short, my opinion, I've enjoyed playing this game for my first, I
Yeah,
guess, real PC
there's a
game.
lot of little details like that that they don't fully explain, but I think that's part of the whole the anxiety of the game. There's no game I've ever played that's given me so much stress in a good way. You know, that there's that argument of games should be fun, but this particular game, that's the point. It's you're supposed to feel that time crunch and like I don't have enough space on my desk. I don't have enough time to do this. There's too many people. You're asking me to do too many things. You keep changing the rules. That's what it is. I mean that's life. You go to your job, you deal with all of those things to some degree, but he does it in an entertaining way where you get all these colorful characters and sometimes they kind of sass talk you or they give you a little side conversation that's distracting you because you have to watch what they say, but then you're trying to look at the documents and they're telling you about their sick cousin or something like that, and it's like, shut up, I'm trying to look at your papers.
Yeah,
But I
and
guess we haven't really explained what the game is too
I
much, have we?
I think he does that in the intro, right?
Oh,
Well,
okay. Oh,
no,
that
not
you're
actually.
gonna do
No,
the
this is actually the part where we discuss it. So,
Oh, okay.
oh,
yeah,
okay.
I just the intro is strictly just like,
Oh,
hey,
okay.
everybody, welcome to the show.
All
So,
right. I just wanted to add, like, just because I know Richard, you're a huge fan of the television program Star Trek, and so is
I
Sauce.
have heard of
mm,
that.
So we're big, huge fan, and it's like this game is kind of like what Captain Picard says. Sometimes you could do all the right things and still lose. That's life, and that's kind of what they do in
It
this
is
game.
possible to commit no
Oh
mistakes
my
and
god!
still
I'm
lose.
sorry, I don't have the exact quote. I'm sorry. What's that called? Oh
nerddom.
no, I don't. I can't remember. I didn't quote him exactly. I did what's one of those where you don't
You
quote somebody.
paraphrased.
Paraphrase. Thank you. Sorry, I paraphrased there.
But now that you bring up Star Trek, you could
Yeah.
say, yeah, this game does bring out a lot of that, in that you are constantly tasked between doing what your superiors tell you to do and making a moral judgment. And that's why, yeah, you do have 20 different endings to the game, and there are so many different ways you can play it, and you get slightly different results. I mean, I've gotten a few different endings, and some of them are very samey.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a spoiler for you, Ryan, but you said you've only gotten like 16 days in. There is kind of an ending, like time, where you play for just about a month, and then basically a decision is made, and you will get an ending at that point. One of 20 endings, I suppose. Just out of curiosity.
There was a decision made for me on day 10 telling me I was fired. So
Yeah,
Well,
that
yeah,
happens too.
that happen. You can get. I've had endings on like day 3, which is typically I didn't have enough money, and I get thrown in jail for debt until I pay off my debt. My family gets sent back to a village, something like that. But you can make it up, to the end. In fact, I finished the game last night, and I got maybe for the first time ending 20 of 20.
Yeah,
So
same with me. I did that about an hour and a half ago. So that was the first time for me as well.
So you played a similar tactic.
I think so. We'll find out.
Well,
maybe we should explain what the game is now, because people are probably confused.
Kevin,
if anyone hasn't played it, it must be a little confusing.
Kevin, you're probably better at. You've been playing this the longest, and you nominated this game for Patreon. So why don't you explain to us what this game is?
Okay. I nominated. It was in a group of 10, and it just happened to win. The group.
I believe we rolled a die.
I think so. Yeah. You're this guy. You're playing a border agent for a fictional Eastern European country. A lot of
Stotska? I never know how to say it.
I don't know either. I don't know. There is no spoken word in the game. Everything is written. So I have seen where Ryan, just before the podcast, he was telling me that there was some fan made films, and they all speak in Russian, so they're just like going right for it. This is Russia.
There was, I don't mean to cut you off, but when I was copying and pasting stuff from the Wikipedia, they were saying it's like a Russian-like country on the ending of a war on the border between these two like Russian-esque countries.
Yeah,
so
it's very much Cold War vibes. It takes place in the early 80s, and there's just suspicion everywhere. You got all sorts of countries, smaller countries that are trying to get in or out, or I don't know, forgetting. You're on the inside. You're trying to decide whether people are coming into the country or not. It is time based. You have so much time during a day. As soon as you click the first person to come in, the clock starts going. So you're under a bit of a time crunch because you're paid by the number of people that you process through the gate. And if you take too much time, you're not going to make enough money to keep your apartment and all of your family alive, basically, because they need food. If one of them gets sick, they need medicine. There's all sorts of different things that can occur during the game to cut your day short. And so you're constantly under the gun to either decide whether or not to pass people or to turn them away. You can't just decide, I'm going to let everybody in, because there are penalties for that. You can't turn everybody away because there are penalties for that. Somehow, like, you're making these decisions, but there's some sort of overlord that's watching you. It's a little bit of a plot hole, but hey, video games. If the guy behind you is better at doing it, why isn't he doing the job? But anyways, so yeah, you're constantly trying, and the rules are changing. You have to constantly keep up on your rules. They keep adding things. They keep taking things away. So you kind of have to keep up on it. I'll get to the other parts later, but that's pretty much the game in a nutshell, right?
Yeah.
You have Richard said, there is a day. There is an endless mode where you can continuously play and play and play, but there is a deadline, I think, of a month. It was December 20th. Yeah. December 24th was the last day. And I think the challenge is there's so many different, like we said, there's 20 different endings. There's so many ways that you can end the game yourself as well. You can it's not just like, well, you made too many mistakes, you can get fired. You can actually decide at some point to just free yourself from the country and leave your family behind. So there's a whole bunch of different things. But I think the ultimate challenge, I think the best ending is that you make enough money to bring everybody over to another country and get out of the country. I think that's the ultimate goal, which I haven't done that yet. I got the same ending as Richard did, so we could talk about that a little later. But that's the game, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
How did you guys? I was just there, Richard. I'll let you talk.
No. Go ahead.
I was going to ask you guys, how did you prefer playing this game? Because there's multiple different ways. Are you more of a straightforward? What's this? Our stroke. I can't even. I'm not even. Whatever this fictional.
Outspoken citizen, or
Are you
whatever it is.
are you straight devoted to your country, or are you or lackadaisical? And just let anyone in, or you're like you listen to everyone's story, and if they're like, hey, my wife needs her papers aren't the best, but can you let her in? Are you one of those like a normal human, or are you straight devoted to your country? Or
Are you a
bag?
liberal or a conservative border
Yeah.
agent, Richard?
Yeah. Trump Harris, huh? Getting into that already.
It's election season. Why not?
Well, when I first started playing this game years ago, I think I was just overwhelmed by everything because I had no idea what was going to be thrown at me. So I was just day by day, I was like, okay, I'll do this. Okay, I'll do that. Coming back for the replay, I did a few kind of random playthroughs where I was just trying to see what would happen. Like I did one playthrough where I just accepted everybody or I just denied everybody. And you only last a couple of days because you just get penalized for that. I had one playthrough where I did nothing. I just ran out the clock and waited to see what would happen. And because there are scripted events, you can't do that. There are some days that even when the bell rings and it's time to go home, if you haven't processed somebody that's important to the story, they'll just keep coming in until that happens. So I decided for my regular playthrough, I was going to be a good citizen. I was going to just follow the rules, do what my superiors told me, and well, this is something we hadn't really gotten into, but there are activists, there are political activists who want to overthrow the government. And at some point in the game, you are approached and they're saying, hey, do this for us. Maybe you get a little something. Do this favor for us. Maybe you get a little something else. And I decided to just ignore them completely and just do my job, take care of my family, and go that way. And that's why I got the ending that I did. Even though right at the end I was tempted to make a different decision, but I had one little factor that prevented me from doing that. So I basically ending 20 of 20 is the inspector comes. That's the month. The end of the month thing that's kind of looming over you. You get told a few days before that there's an inspection coming and they're going to look into your past and all of your dealings and they're going to make some sort of judgment on you.
An audit, I think the game calls it.
An audit. Yeah, I called it an audit. So I basically just rejected all the terrorists. I followed terrorist, political activists, whatever they are. And I just was a good citizen. And at the end, I was told, hey, you made some mistakes, but you were loyal to the country. Good for you. You get to keep your job. That was my ending.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Was that your favorite ending, or have you gotten other ones over the time that you're like, oh,
I
that
was
more
happy
fun?
to get that because it's ending 20 of 20. So it kind of was the direction I was heading in. Right at the end, stuff happens where you are given the opportunity to move your family out of the country. In order to do that, you have to illegally confiscate passports to a different country. I guess this was the same for you, Kevin, where you get tipped off by the character Georgie, the guy who keeps coming to the border over and over again with fake passports, no information, and then finally he starts getting, legitimate forged copies of paperwork and everything. So basically, I had it to the point where I could escape with all but one of my family members. I was like $10 short, so I couldn't get all of my family members. I did make the decision to adopt my niece. At some point, your sister dies, and you have a choice of taking on another family member, which means spending more money or just letting her go. So I was $10 short. So I said, I'll just be a good citizen and see what happens if I face the music. And they were like, hey, you're a good guy. Keep your job.
With Georgie, I'm guessing he did this for me because I finally let him through the gate. And then at the end, like I didn't get a bonus under the counter for letting them in. But when at the end of the day, you get your totals for people you process. It said $1,000 bonus, and I'm like, how did this happen? And I'm like, I'm guessing because I finally let him through, and I knew if I let him through, I get a token. Because I did ask the Discord this question, like, do the tokens have anything? And I guess no, they're just like collectible coins from the different countries. Where if you're a completionist, there are speed runs for this game, and they're like get all the coin speed runs. So I had to figure out what these are. They're just meaningful, like little trophies. Like if you get one of the coins
achievements, right?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
So like one of them is and I think I mentioned this earlier, that the husband who has the proper paperwork, and he's like, hey, my wife's up next, be nice to her, kind of thing. If you just let her in, because her paperwork is always off, it's a scripted event in the game. It happens like day 5 or 6 or something, where like something's not right on her papers, but if you process her, let her through so she can go with her husband, then she trips you a coin. And I think I got like
I always kick her out.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. I get that coin now.
believe me, I've been doing that every single time, because every time I've been playing this game, I've been playing, I think, the strictly loyal to my country route, where I'm like, nope, I don't care. Take your sad sap story somewhere else, lock it down, get the detainees here out. I got a job to keep, because hey, your family, needs, to stay
Your
alive.
son needs medicine and
Yeah,
everything
your son's
like that.
always sick every 2 days. So, I need the heat one day, and I need the food the other day. That's another thing I had to find out, that you have to make that choice where one day you're not going to eat. So that day you pay for the heat.
Yeah, this corrupt communist government nickels and dimes you on absolutely everything. Your food, your heat, your rent. And I like the nice little touch that if you want an upgrade for your booth, it's like, oh, you've done so much work, you get like an upgrade for your booth where you could just press the space bar to, examine documents or whatever, but you have to pay for it.
Yep.
That comes out of your paycheck too.
Did anybody go for those upgrades?
I did. Yeah.
I tried
Me
it
too.
once.
I think I got were there like 4 upgrades? I think I got them all. Space bar
Yeah. That
for your quick scan.
mm-hmm.
Tab is your stamp slide out.
Yeah.
I think there was a double click, something you could just like.
Yeah, I never got that
like
to
a
work.
faster scan.
I
think like instead of having to press the space bar to bring up the or press the scan button, you just double click on something and it automatically triggers it.
Is that what that is? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then there's the tabs in the book that you can get.
Yes. Although I got to admit, there were 2 things I did for my playthrough that made it a lot easier. One,
I did the same.
I figured, hey, I'm I'm working for this corrupt government that's like watching my every move. I want to get my stuff right. So I wrote down all the issuing cities for passports. I made little pictures of all the official seals to check what was a counterfeit or not. Just tons of little bits of information. It saves you a lot of time not having to flip through that book.
Having to open that book. And it's actually pain when somebody does have something wrong. It's like, I gotta get the book out so I can prove that.
Well, you have to dig out the book. It's buried under all the other papers and stuff at that point.
Yeah, there's a lot of desk management. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, the other thing I did is when you start the game, everybody's okay. So the very first day, don't feed anybody, don't give them any heat. Just like say, hey,
I'll wait till I get sick. Wow, you guys are ruthless.
My first paycheck yet. Hey, that worked though, because then you can process a lot of people very quickly in the first couple of days. You build up your little
nest egg,
and then it makes it easier when you do suddenly get those penalties because I missed that one thing.
Yeah. Well, I do like how the game takes the days and puts them out in a grid in the menu system. So if when I was getting stuck or I had too many penalties or whatever, I would just go back. I would exit out to the menu and like, I got to restart. I will say like a lot of the game. Can we talk about stuff that we don't like about the game yet?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Really the only thing I don't like about the game is that it does take a lot of attention to play. This is not like a zone out kind of game, racing game, where you can just like, listen to some tunes while you're going around. Not me anyways. I have to pay attention to everything. So, like my wife and I would like to watch a movie at night after she goes to bed. If I started playing this game, I am making mistakes all over the place. This is like get up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, be fresh and ready to go. So I'm like
going to work.
I gotta say the most fun I had playing it is when I was playing it at my desk here. It felt like a real office job almost. I had the mouse and the keyboard and doing.
Kevin, have you contemplated going to be a Canadian Border Patrol agent?
No, absolutely not. No, that does not cross my mind. But how I played the game. Thanks for asking. I played it very much like Richard did as well. I when I first started, I was kind of like trying to do like okay, let me listen to everybody's story and decide whether or not they should come in. And I found that just took too much time. So it was just better just to stick to the rules to see like it was just the way I was going to play this time, just to stick to the rules. So I'm not thinking about too much about their story or whatever, like just whatever's happening. I don't care. If you got something wrong, you're not coming in. Now, what you were saying earlier too, Ryan, how it kind of tricks you a little bit. The game tricks you. And I found that a lot of times, like for instance, a person would come up and you'd say, how long are you staying? They'll be like 2 weeks. And you look at her document, it says 3 months, right? And you're like, oh, that's a discrepancy. Oh, I made a mistake. So you give them the old red, get out of here. And that you're not supposed to do that. As long as they correct themselves, I guess, or give you the correct answer at some point, that's okay.
Yeah,
so
it seems like they're sneaking their way through, but
yeah,
that's how the game works.
Yeah. So you kind of have
Any
to be on your,
discrepancy, you have to call them on it, and if they can back it up,
yeah,
I mean, they get you early on in that somebody will, they're supposed to give you a passport and an entry permit if they're from another country. First, it's an entry ticket, then it's an entry permit. Sometimes they'll just give you the passport. You're like, oh, no entry ticket, denied, give it back. And then you find out that if you had asked them for it, they would have handed
it to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you always have to, look at the desk. There's your desk, and then there's the part where they put their documents onto, and you have to examine that part. And then you can ask them, where is this document? Oh, it's right here. I just forgot to give it to you or whatever. So,
and part of that is too, you have to like go through your little book to ask them said questions, right? So in that case, as an example, when they give you just the passport but not the work permit, you have to then go to the page in your book, scan, click on that, and then click on the table to ask them the said question, like no entrance without a work passport. And then they're like, oh, here you go. I'm sorry about that. I forgot.
Yeah.
Because that has gotten me a couple times. There's been a couple times where, as an example, and I've mentioned the fingerprints, where I think I saw the correlation where they said 2 weeks and it was only 2 days on the work slip. And I'm clicking on it. I'm clicking on multiple things like the desk to ask him like, hey, this is wrong, kind of thing. Or that I know for a fact that one of the times I rejected them, even though I saw the counter to what it was, and I got penalized, and they said I should have let them in. And then there's the other time where I think I had a person followed up right after that, and then I clicked on it, and because I let them in, I got penalized because it had the wrong date. So there's more and more little things in their books. Then again, I said you're allowed to make at least like 2 mistakes a day before you get penalized. I think that just adds to the game, and you're supposed to process people as fast as possible. Like day number 1, after doing this, more than a handful of times, I think I can get 13 people through the gate the first day. It's pretty simple. You're not even asking that much for them, basically. So, like Richard was saying, I'm trying to build up as much of a fun as possible. But there are scripted events. I think like day 2, there's someone who has a bomb strapped to their chest, and that kind of then starts putting more in for like day 3. More things are going to have to look for and such. Right. Like no matter what, I think of just watching a speedrunner play this game. Your goal is to process as many people because like the said 9th person is going to be the whatever bomber or the person who has a gun, which there are also times when someone I think gets past security and you have to like use a gun to shoot them to stop them from
that happens a few times. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can
So-
decide whether or not you want to use lethal force or
Mhm.
stun them. Yeah.
So
I was nervous to use, 'cause I don't know if this is different based on what decisions you make, but the tranquilizer gun is given to you by your superiors. They give you the key to that. But then the regular rifle, I got the key from one of the extremists. He slipped me a key. So I was always nervous to use that gun because then I thought my superiors would come down on me. It's like, how did you get access to that?
Mm. Yeah, I used lethal force once. I was just out of sheer panic. I'm like, what key is this? I don't know. Let's go. Let's shoot him.
well, it's the management of your desk where I'm like, I'm using 2 monitors here. And Richard, you showed me your and this is for the audio of people of this. Richard drew out his
His
cheat
crib
sheet.
notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you go to Google, there's much nicer cheat
Oh, I'm
sheets and
sure.
whatnot, so but still, even with that going back and forth, it still is very much still challenging, the fact, because you're so cluttered to your small desk.
Yeah.
As an example, the one day, I think on day 10, one of your bosses comes to you and he gives you a plaque, like a gold medal kind of thing, or anyone. I might have missed him saying this, like, whatever, to hang it up, but I'm like, great, now I have this more clutter on my desk here that I don't need, kind of thing. It turns out you can hang it on the wall behind him.
Yeah, you can hang different things up there. At some point, someone gave me a pennant
Mm-hmm.
for some sports team. My kid drew a picture. So I was putting everything up there to clear space. Then my supervisor comes in and says, "What is this garbage up here? You can't hang these things. It's for plaques only." And I got penalized for
Yeah,
hanging
me
the
too.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't even use those strip club cards that they keep giving you here.
Yeah.
So come in and let you have a
Yeah, I
good
was
time here.
wondering, there are so many things in the game that people hand you that some, like, there's at one point someone's looking for engineers. So
Yep.
if you hand out his card to anyone who has an engineering work permit, you get a little bonus for that. There are strip club cards. There's at one point someone hands me like a notice for a gym. I don't know if that had anything you can do with it. I do know that there was one, I got one pin. Someone hands you like a note that says like you're wonderful or something like that. And then a woman comes in, she's depressed. She's like, "Oh, life sucks and everything." So I gave her the note and then
Oh.
it cheered her up and then she gave me a pin for that. And one other thing I did ended the game for me. At one point your supervisor comes in and he's like, "Hey, there's this extremist group and they have a symbol like this," and he shows you like a little drawing. And prior to that, the Aztecs, whatever they are,
Yeah.
had given you some kind of a little cipher to like let a few people in. So he said, "Do you know anything about this?" And I handed him the cipher. And then he's like, "Oh, this is very interesting." And then hard cut to ending like, "Oh, you've been associating with
Oh, wow.
terrorists, so you're getting thrown in jail." So I know there's lots of little things like that that you can easily brush past in the game, not knowing that if you give the right thing to the right person, you some other little event happens.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I miss those.
there was an event that happened where I think one of those people sent me 2 letters and say, "Hey, there's a person coming for your slip. Do not give him. Here's the good one. Here's the bad one. Do not mix it up." And I'm like,
Mm.
and like they're clearly a whatever radical, right? For against your country. And I was like, "Nah, I'll give him the real one, and I'll keep the fake one for myself or something like that." And then what's it called? I got like the next day, the guy stopped by and he said, "Like, you clearly missed giving the correct paperwork. You got a chance in a couple, like 3 days, the next person's coming. Do not mess it up," or something like that.
Yeah. The worst thing about that is when they give you the envelope, like they're exactly the same. It's something like ducks, wildlife, something like that. And I was looking for like a little bark, something to show me that which is the real one. So if you fumble those around on your desk in the wrong way, you can completely mix it up and not knowing what you're doing.
Did you have a desk strategy, like where you
Hmm.
put everything? Like, did you have it
Oh yeah.
organized in
Oh
a
yeah.
like I would put so every day after a certain point, you would get the most wanted people. So you could
Mhm.
kind of like stuff that over onto the right, so you could just see the strip of faces. And then
Yeah.
I'd put my keys up into the right corner on top of that paper because you didn't need like the top banner. And then I would put the passport in the top left, and then depending on where you are in the game, they eventually combine a couple of passes. They put that there, and then they're
Mhm.
beside it, and then underneath the passport, I would put the vaccination card or a work pass, or depending on what what you were working with, and then eventually I would have to start eliminating things. Like I would look at the work pass. Okay, this is good. Put this over to the side and all that, because then it would just become so overwhelming of what's on your desk. It's
Yeah, I did something similar. I tried to keep my keys towards the bottom so that I can like quick access get them to the thing. But I realized like as soon as you start playing this game and you get into a couple of days, I feel so dyslexic because every document has information in a different
everywhere.
spot,
Yeah.
and some like the names will be first name, last name, and then it'll
Mhm.
be reversed on another document. And they intentionally give these people like these crazy hard to read names with really bizarre spellings, the certain letter combinations that you're like, this is not natural for me
Right.
to read. So you're checking spellings and you're checking the passport number and expiration dates and all of that. So I would try to get to a system where I keep the passport up on the desk and other documents, I just bring them over, look at them, compare them, and then put them back on the like the little sidebar there.
Okay.
And and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't because you have so many things and then you do get a discrepancy where you have to dig out your rule book and then go to the right page, click on this, click discrepancy,
Yeah.
interview them.
Like my
Uh,
favorite thing is when the detain option would come up,
oh
because it was
yes,
just like you could click that and it clears everything. It's so nice.
there's everything off.
That did burn me
Of-
though
uh,
once, because at some point in the game you have to start confiscating passports. And
yeah.
if you don't remember to confiscate that passport before you hit the detain button and it clears everything, that counts as a penalty. So you got to watch
Right.
out for that.
I also got burned because your supervisor tells you, "Oh, this friend of mine is coming in a couple of
That
days."
happened to me too. Yep.
And then like it's not even the next day. It's like a week or so later, maybe 2 weeks later, someone comes in, she doesn't have the right paperwork, reject her. He comes in the next day. I told you to let her in. End of game.
You fired.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I had to go back to the previous day and play that again
Yeah.
to let her through.
That is a wonderful feature to this game because sometimes making one mistake like that, especially if you're already halfway through, you've got a couple weeks under your belt to start all the way over again. It's like,
Yeah.
no.
Well, and sometimes like there'd be a day or two between like I pause the game and I wouldn't get back to it for a couple of days. I'm like, oh yeah, I
Yeah.
forgot about her or whatever. Did any of you
Mhm.
take the $1,000 bribe?
During early playthroughs, I did.
Yeah, I got hosed on that.
Yeah,
I took the bribe. I thought, well, they're never going to find that out. No, they found that out right away. They monitor
mhm.
your account.
Yeah,
Well, it
your
was
neighbors rat you out.
yeah, yeah. It takes a couple of days actually, and then yeah, they're like, oh, you have too much money in your account, and you end up going to
It,
jail.
it's wonder the timing of everything in this game is fantastic. Like you said, you don't think you're gonna get caught. You get the bribe, you start spending that money. It's like, oh, this is great. Next
Yeah,
day, hey, I'm paying my bills. This is great. Like 3 days later, then oh, by the way, all that money's gone now.
yeah, and you're going to jail.
And the one that gets me every time, I'm sure you guys agree with this, the sound of that fax coming through when you've
Oh,
made a mistake.
the printout. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the person is walking away and you're looking at the next person, you're getting your stuff ready, next person, and then suddenly
You got the
oh, what did I do now?
yeah, and
You
it's
can't
always
just
something
throw it away in the
stupid.
garbage can either to clear your space. It's just
No, it's
another
there.
area. Just
It's
Well, you
there.
can throw it off onto that little sidebar,
Yeah.
so at least you have a little less clutter, but
Mhm.
it's that visual reminder and you can see like, oh, I made two mistakes already. If I
I
make one
watched
more.
I
lose
watched the
$5.
guys, the guys walking out of the booth, and I just like as soon as they pass that point, it's like, okay, I'm not going to hear the stupid printout.
Did you So for my, I guess, general strategy here is I put the rule book on the left side because I always will. So there's some things I've picked up from watching a speedrunner is you don't have to click on like the city to match it against their document. You can just click on, I think it says like ISS, some bar. It basically just covers the whole range of cities. If you just click that, so it speeds it up, so you don't have to quite look to scan it. But I always have, when I see them, when a person's processing, I always kind of go back to the very first book, just in the order, because then I can just quickly click through it as opposed to having to go backwards to it. So I always try to start with the very first book until they throw it on the test, and then I scroll quickly to the next, to the governing passport. But I always have that to the left because I always need, I guess, to go left, right. So then I put their work papers and whatnot. If it's like, I guess, your straight country, you have your card as they have like whatever, like their little identification card. I always just try to scan all that stuff first, like make sure that picture matches. Here's another one of those ones. Like I got docked for the face clearly was not the same, and they're like, oh yeah, my time's not been good to me, was like the response. But so I rejected them, and they're like, nope, that was perfectly fine. The person, the fingerprints matched or didn't, but it had no matching alias. So like there's times where I'm still trying to figure out how do I counter to like let this person in, right? I still haven't quite figured out some of these things.
Yeah. Sometimes the person is telling you the truth. Time hasn't been kind to them, and the fingerprints vindicate that. So you have to let them through. Yeah, it's not always cut and dry. It's gray. It's a gray area.
Yeah, there are times that their weight doesn't match either. They're not carrying anything. They just gained weight, and it's the same as when they say, "Oh, I'm here for transit." Oh no, but you have a work permit. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm here working.
Right.
Sometimes they're just stupid.
Yeah. Or they make mistakes or they're nervous. Okay. Here's the serious question. Here's the question of the podcast right now. Did you play with nudity on or off?
I didn't know there's a filter to turn it off. So hardcore nudity for myself.
Yeah, I had it on. I wanted to see what's doing.
Yeah.
Got to know. I
think it's by default it's on. So I think you'd have to go into the settings and find out that you could turn it off.
Yeah, I think it's for streamers, right? Because they might get
that makes sense. Yeah, you get penalized on like Twitch for that,
right?
What is there and I guess that's part of the strategy then too, because for when it comes to scan, and that's where the nudity will show. But the one I would say probably the one that's burned me the most out of all the your citations is the sex identification, because it's on their passport. It's M or W, right? For your choice to select, and
M or F.
Sorry. Yeah. But there was one time, maybe it's happened like 2 or 3 times, I would say, where it said like not a known sex, or like where I'm like, so like I wasn't paying, I guess, close enough attention to their rule book, but that was the citation where everything matched up, but apparently the sex was not I don't know what they had, like animal or something like that. I wish not. I'm saying like I have to like now like I should have. Well, you can't go back because that's like a RNG one. So I would love to like. I know you just gotta pay attention more to everything, right? But I know I got penalized at least twice. I can at least say where it said not a known sex.
I haven't gotten that one.
Me neither. I've never gotten that one.
I have been burned on that because with all other information, things kind of are written out, but you just get that one letter, MF. It's not male, female written out. So it's very easy to overlook at times.
Maybe it's just like a different letter or something like that.
I know this is politically incorrect these days, but there are times I've seen someone and I've seen their sex listed on the passport. I'm like, nah, you don't look like a woman. You don't look like a man. You call them out on it. And sometimes there's a discrepancy. Sometimes it's just you have to do the scan, and you're like, "Oh, nope, okay, you pass."
You're a woman. Yep.
Yeah.
That was one yesterday for me.
There was also the height thing. I found that to be a little tricky.
That one's difficult,
especially later on in the game, because it's not clearly labeled. Like it's not the thing that they're standing in front of is not exactly clear. And sometimes they got big hair or whatever.
Yeah,
So
and they're kind of bouncing up and down too.
yeah. So I would check that a lot. Like it would be like 9 times out of 10 it'd be fine. Then that one time it's like, oh, that's stupid height.
Is there a scan, like a height behind them, like, and I've not noticed by chance? Like, is there like
Yeah.
There are just markings like
Yeah.
at a convenience store exit. You have the.
But does that have like a
height
number
detection.
listed or no?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I guess I've never noticed that ever. I've just automatically, that's one of the ones I'm almost always scanning now, is their height. I just basically just select height on their passport and then scan their face, and it will say like no discrepancy or discrepancy.
Right.
I've never noticed behind them that there actually is a height bar.
I think that's the process everybody goes through when you start playing this game, because I remember playing it for the first time, and they don't tell you like about the scale or the measurements on the board, or they don't tell you that you can hang things on the wall. There's so many things that you just figure out. But I don't think it's an oversight. I think it's just intentionally part of that stress and time and management of, you got to figure these things out because your boss is watching you.
Yeah,
so
because
they're not.
You want to get good at that stuff too. You want to get good at spotting that stuff, because if you're constantly using the machine to double check everything, you're going to run out of time. You're not going to be able to process enough people.
And it also adds to the replayability if you think about it too. That like, okay, well now next time I'll go back and I'll pay attention now for height, or next time like when you weren't really paying attention to something. And I by that I mean I'm trying to think of any other like things I'm almost always scanning now. Like, are there things that you guys always 100% will like, okay, I'm always making sure I scan this just because it's, what I'm saying? Like, is there, like, for me, I guess I always will scan the picture of their face from their passport to their body. And if there's like a driver's license, I almost will always match that, because there's been a time where I thought the picture looked identical to the person and they said did not match the passport picture, and I got a citation. So that's like one I always will scan 100% of the time, just to cover my tracks. But is there like, do you guys have at least like one or two that you almost always will scan just for paranoia?
Go ahead, Richard.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's my turn to talk. I don't think there's anything that I do always, but I have been burned a lot on forgeries. So the seal that is on the stamp, because it's kind of hidden by all the text, and there are multiple acceptable stamps that are similar, but this one is round, this one is square, this one has MOJ, Ministry of Justice, on it, this one doesn't. And for a long time, I couldn't notice the differences, and I'd get a notice about a forgery went through. But then you start to see, okay, it's flipped backwards, it's kind of reversed, or maybe it has an X on it instead of a slash through it. But when you're in that panic mode, I'm looking at this, I'm looking at that, I'm looking at this, it's very easy for me to miss those little discrepancies, seals. So I was scanning a lot of those, and constantly referencing the book during this last playthrough. You may speak now, Kevin.
I do check. I don't know if I scan everything every time, but I do every time I check the book or my cheat sheet for the issue, the town that the passport was issued from, because that's the one that was tricky. That would get me all the time, because it might be a city that you recognize, but it's not from the right country. Know, so I constantly would double check that. But when I first started playing it, I was double checking everything with the machine, and it was taking up too much time. I wasn't getting enough people through, and I was losing money, and I wasn't going to get to the end of the game if I kept that up. So I made sure to get good at just checking things on the fly.
The issuing city is one that I started to get good at, where I could see a country and then like, oh yeah, I know that city. So
I could do it
with
like
on the back for that,
like names that were like, I know that United Federation is Grand Rapids, like names like that. But like when it comes to like
Great Rapid,
see,
get penalized for that.
Oh my goodness, citation. When it comes to like all the Eastern European inspired names, yeah, I could not follow. I didn't trust myself, so I would double check.
Right. Because sometimes it's off by one letter, especially with
Yeah.
the names. An A will become an O, something like that.
Right.
Yeah, because at least there's some paranoia in this too. Like I almost find myself always scanning the entry by date for like the work permit with against the clock, because I feel like, unless I know for a fact, but I know I've been burnt a couple of times that the entry date was expired or something like that, or the passport date is expired, where I'm always like questioning myself, where I'm like, what was the date on this one? Was it I find myself being paranoid, and then of I don't know, just being afraid of getting that citation, and then it costs you.
Yeah,
So
those entry permits were really close. Like there's a short window from when they're issued to where the person can use them before they're expired. Whereas like the passports and that, they're pretty. I think the entire game takes place in 1982. So if it says 1984 or 83, I think you're good to go.
were there any newspaper headlines between the days that you read to pay attention that you thought may pertain to the story of the playout of the game? And I'll give you an example, because so far, at least in my playthrough, I've yet to notice it. But there was at least one event early on in the game where the girl hands me a strip club thing, and then at the end of the conversation, she's like, "There's a guy after me and my sister. Do not let him in," kind of thing. Like he's probably gonna hurt my sister. And for the most part, I just process them because I'm like loyal to my job. I don't care. But there was like an article like either a day prior or after where it said like, and I'm probably getting this wrong, but they said like killer, blah, 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 blah. Like a serial killer, and it had like a matching picture where I'm like, okay,
It's like
I'm gonna be paying
murder at a strip club, something like that.
well, maybe before or something after, where it leads to like maybe like, okay, I'm gonna have to watch out for, because it had like a picture of the guy where I even took like a snapshot. I used the like snipping tool, took a picture of that article. I'm like, maybe I'm gonna have to watch out for this guy. But I'm just curious if any of those I've never seen that pertain, but it was definitely, I think, slowing down my process, because I'm like, I gotta make sure I pay attention to this thing, because maybe that's gonna affect me later on in the game. But so
They,
far,
they,
I've yet to have any newspaper article. I'm just curious if there are any like,
oh yeah, yeah. There's an early one where this guy, Vince Lestrandi, something like that. He's like a known serial killer,
mhm.
and he comes through. So it'll be on every day you get that little manifest that says, here are today's rules and changes. And I think it's usually like the last page or something. If there are any articles from the paper that pertain to you're letting someone in or not, it'll be in there. And then you can discrepancy, click on that, click on the person, get them detained. But yeah, there have been a number of events. I can't think of any others in particular, but based on whether you let someone in or not, you'll get a headline.
So I guess I let somebody in who's a serial killer, probably. So
It happens.
Well, that's the thing.
whatever.
The game
We're
doesn't let you
human. We're
do
human.
things perfectly. You are going to make mistakes one way or the other, whether it's you make a moral judgment and you defy your superiors, or you just play it by the book and then you see, okay, I let somebody in and he killed somebody else, and that's it.
Mhm.
It's that moral ambiguity. You're constantly in that gray zone.
Is there anything else you think we need to discuss? Because I think we generally covered the game. Because there's nothing. There's one song really for the game, so we're not going to really be talking about the music or.
Yeah,
There's
if we want to just
Oh,
if we want to just mention the audio I think in the game is excellent for atmosphere's sake. Like the music was spot on. It definitely has that Eastern European vibe to it. I liked how the language in the game was just like this. Like there isn't very much, but it's just kind of like Charlie Brown, adult in a Charlie Brown game
mhm.
with an Eastern European accent. And it's always the same thing. Like no matter what the person's saying out of the speaker, like when you click next, it's always like the rah, 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 rah. And then and then it'll say next, right? Or rah, 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 rah. And then the caption will be, not everyone's going to be let through or whatever. Make sure to have your papers ready. But I thought all that audio in that was well done. and the graphics are good too. I mean, for what it is, they're simple, just 2D graphics. They have a nice brown kind of
in gray, yeah, nice
brown and gray. Like, it's dingy.
Gray.
It's a dingy game. This isn't good times.
It feels cold, right? It feels cold.
Yeah, but it's cartoony enough. Like they just got everything. Like the characters are cartoony enough, but they look sad enough that you kind of want to help them at times. Yeah,
it's like a 16-bit almost, kind of, right? I would say, or 8-bit. Would you say more? I don't know, somewhere around
16.
there.
I'd say 16. Yeah,
it's more like a 13-bit.
13. Yeah. It's right in between.
No, this might be one of the best executed games I've ever played. I really can't think of anything I dislike about it. There are parts of the game where things are not clear, but I believe it's by design. And even though it's kind of stressful and anxiety inducing at times, I never find it frustrating. All the times I get citations or I get a bad ending, I never get that, the game cheated me, or it's all there, That's your job, is to pay attention to the details. It is not easy, especially when you're racing against the clock. I think that it just straight across the board. It's just like, you nailed it perfectly, Mr. Lucas Pope, who I believe, hang on, I had the things. By its 10th anniversary, Papers, Please has sold more than 5 million copies.
Wow.
What does this game cost?
I think
$10, $20 times 5 million. Good for you, good. Lucas Pope. Even on sale at like $2.
Yeah.
Times 5 million.
Yeah, it's doing okay.
Come on.
I had that written down as well, Richard. I had said, like, never cheated. Like, I never felt like the game was cheating me. Just like taking that $1,000 bribe, and then the game ends like 2 or 3 days later, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, yeah, that was really stupid of me for taking that bribe, right? It's never the game's fault, and I think that's always a sign of a really good game.
One thing I discovered about that bribe, I didn't know until this most recent playthrough, which I guess you probably saw also, is if you reject that bribe, you can opt to burn it.
Right. Yeah.
The next day, they double down. They give you $2,000. And then,
oh, really?
I was trying to be a good citizen, so I burnt it again. I continued on.
Does burning the money count towards the heat of your home? Like, is your heat bill less?
It should.
That'd be great.
It should.
I'm paying for the heat that day. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, like I always I always say, like, Castlevania is my example. Like, a lot of people complain that Castlevania is like a really clunky game, and there's a lot of platforming and stuff like that for the people who don't like it. And I've always said that all those mechanics in the game are there to service the game and the level design. And you do get stuck or whatever sometimes, but it's always because you can learn to do better. You can do, like, through when you go play it again, you're constantly, there's some trial and error in games. Really good games have trial and error in them. And this is one game that has some trial and error, and you're using your brain, for the next time to get out of the situation. And I think everything, all the limitations, like on the desk and everything, that's all there to service the game. It's not there to hinder you or to cheat you or anything like that. It's all part of it. And I think it's just really well done.
I will say, and I don't, not me, because you guys have played this longer, but the game, I want to say, maybe it's the stress that leads in anxiety from this game that leads me to not doing long game sessions.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, there's definitely, like, after like a day or two, I'm like, I need a break, because this was a lot.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot, like, trying to think of, okay, I gotta make sure this, I gotta check this, and I guess it's work. It's like, if you're being stressed at work, you need a little break, basically, from doing it. But I found myself never really having long game sessions playing this game, just because I'm trying to do my job correctly and my best, where I'm just like, I just need a break, and I'll stop the game and I'll come back the next day and just do like a day or two. But
yeah, if I go on too long, I just start making too many mistakes, and I'm going back and replaying the day and all that. And it's just, you got to be fresh. You got to be on your toes for it.
that's another little detail of after your day at work and you have to manage all of your expenses and check on your family, the option is sleep. It's like,
Yes.
yeah, you really need to
Yeah.
take a break
I
from
mean,
this game.
if you play an hour, you've probably gone through 3 days, in the games. That's like 3 work days in an hour. So of
Mhm.
course you're allowed to have a nice break after that.
Yeah. There was at one point, I introduced the game to my sister. So we were sitting around and there were three of us just, watching the screen at the same time. And doing it that way, I can look at passports, you can look at vaccines, you can check this, and we're all
Right.
kind of like looking for the mistakes. And like, oh, the birthday, something like that. So if you play it with a bunch of people, it actually does become a lot more entertaining and fun. It's a bit more upbeat, and you just kind of laugh everything off when you make a
Right.
mistake.
You
So
played the
yeah,
couch co-op version of Papers,
if you do
Please.
couch co-op, you can laugh your way through it.
Nice.
I guess the only people who can't laugh is that there are some countries not dissimilar to this. It's not too far fetched from
Yeah, it
certain
is.
realities.
It is based on reality. That's the unfortunate
Yeah.
part. Yeah.
Can I ask real quick? Are there any? Because I still have for this run that I'm currently on. Are the upgrades really beneficial, or can I just skip them? Should I continue? Should I
I
buy at least one of them, or
I'd say yes. Because
which?
once you have it, like I got my mouse in one hand, and then I have my left hand on the tab key and the space bar.
Mm,
And at first, I'm constantly mixing them up. I'm pulling out
Yeah,
my
me too.
stamps when I want to, trigger the scan or whatever. Once you get to the little separators in your book to make it easier to jump to a certain spot, and the double click to trigger a scan with your mouse, that makes a big difference. But those are the later ones, so you have to go through like the
the cheap.
kind
You
of
have to
like
buy the cheap
it's
ones
kind of a
first, right?
so-so upgrade to a really
Yeah,
good upgrade.
Yeah.
gotcha.
No, the only other thing I would add is that it's really wonderful that the game gives you that time to reflect before signaling the first person of the day, where you have time because you're timed in everything you do, but you are unlimited in, okay, I can put this picture here, put this book here, position my hands, check my notes, make sure I'm good on all the day's details and stuff. So
Yeah, because the rules change daily. They're not. It's
yeah,
not drastic, not everything, but there will be like, oh, people can bring this in now, or don't accept people from this country, or whatever. You have to
right.
give yourself time to review all of that stuff before you jump in, because you're going to get burned if you
Especially
don't.
if you've taken a few days off and you have to remember, oh, I'm supposed to
Yeah.
collect these ID cards from these
Mhm.
people. I have to confiscate from this country, or this country doesn't come in today. And
It took a minute for me to realize too the clock of your day does not start the second you walk into the booth, because you see your little self walk into the booth, and I was assuming that the clock was immediately there when you walk in the door, but no, it doesn't happen until you open the gate and let the first person through. That's when
right.
the real game clock starts for your workday. Let me, I guess, as I guess follow up to that one. Are you not charged? Like if someone walks in your booth and you hear that horn for the day, because I thought I even got a response once saying you do not get paid for people past your clock.
Yeah, that's
Do you
right.
not?
So yeah, the last person you deal, if there's somebody in there and the horn blows, you're
Mhm.
not going to get paid for that person. So that person I'll take my time with. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
check every little
I
letter.
it's worth it to not get penalized, but yeah, you don't
Yeah.
get any pay.
Mm.
Well, you have to use those like later on in the game when you're making those choices. Like if you did want to escape with your family, you have to start basically stealing people's passports
Hmm.
who do not deserve to have their passports taken. So those penalties, you can do two of those a day without being penalized and without losing money because you need that money to escape too. So you have to start using that as part of your strategy of how many mistakes can I make if I want to make an intentional mistake or a moral call, and let the wife through even though she doesn't have the passport or something like that.
Yeah, you have to really think about what kind of person you want to be if you want to get the good ending.
Kevin, you mentioned there are multiple movies. I only saw one movie for Papers, Please. That a fan-made movie, I should say.
Yeah.
Uh,
I only watched the one because you mentioned that there was a 6-minute one,
Mhm.
and the first one that came up was like a 10-minute one.
Yes.
And
That's the
then
one I watched, but it's only like
Oh,
6
okay.
minutes long, and there's like 3 minutes of credits or something like that.
Oh, I
So,
see. Okay,
yeah.
okay. I scrolled down and there was other videos. Some of it was like in-game engine kind of thing, and I don't know. I didn't exactly. I just
Yeah.
looked at
Sure.
titles and stuff and thought, wow, there's a lot of movies here. But
Yeah. There's a definitely so I also say too with playing this game, I was just looking through Reddit because there is a Papers, Please community on Reddit where people basically are just talking there about their gameplay experiences on this one and their strategies. There's a lot of jokes that people make, especially with like Yuri as a character. He seems to be a very big fan. Love people who are fans of this game love that character in this game. But I don't know. I was using it for some strategies here, and there's a lot of, I don't want to say lure to the game, but there's definitely,
you mean
I don't know,
lore? Like
yeah,
lore? Okay.
lure,
Lore.
like a fishing lure, yeah, right. So
No, lore. You mean like lore,
lore,
like
We're
yeah,
story,
talking about
backstory.
Data's brother in Star Trek: The Next Generation.
That's
yeah.
a great show.
Yeah, it sure is. Anyways, Richard, how about you start us off with the overall thoughts on the game?
I really like it. It's a very good game. It's well executed. It's got a great story. The gameplay is very tight. It's very fair. You're not going to get cheated in this game, but you will make lots and lots of mistakes. You just need to get better. And it's a game that I played many years ago. I was happy to come back to it now. I'll be happy to come back to it probably in a couple of years.
Kevin, what are your overall thoughts on the game?
Yeah, pretty much just what Richard said. The only thing I'll add is like all the different endings gives you a lot of replay ability. Going you can start back and play the whole game again, or you can select different days. Make notes on I will say make notes because the menu system can get a little confusing. It gives you timestamps, but if there's something significant that you did, and it's like, oh, did I just screw up there? Just like make a note on what day it is so you can go back to that part or whatever. But yeah, it's for an indie game that might cost you $2 on Steam. You'll get lots of hours of enjoyment out of it. It's good times if you like time management stuff, and
If you like work,
yeah, I mean it does feel like work sometimes. It's a little simmy, I guess. But I find that fun. I find that stuff fun.
for myself, I've really enjoyed this playthrough. Well, like I said, I've kind of with this game, it's just a really weird because I would say most of the time when I'm really enjoying a game, I will play for hours and hours and hours. This game, I feel like, and I mentioned it before, with the stress and anxiety that comes from this game, I definitely need. This is like a short sprint for me kind of game where just you get my feel for the game, and that's not a bad thing. Just it's a like, hey, I'm gonna play this. I got 30 minutes available. I can probably knock out a day or two real quick before I have to leave.
Small doses.
Yeah, small doses,
Yeah.
and I think this is one of those perfect games for that kind of situation. I will say, because I see this is available for Android and iOS, I would not play this on a tablet at all, unless there's like some kind of better.
You just reminded me of something. So if you recall back on Retro Fandango, our fantastic podcast that airs twice a month, you can go check that out on YouTube. That's Retro Fandango, starring myself and Richard.
Sometimes twice a month.
Sometimes
Once every couple of months.
Depends on the month. This summer's been busy. I initially wanted to play this game on the Steam Deck, and this game is Steam Deck verified, but I did not enjoy myself trying to play this on the Steam Deck. I could not get like the pads to do the mouse very well, and I stuck to the PC for most of the game. So I don't know what the iOS or Android versions are like, but if it's anything like the Steam Deck version, this is definitely a more PC experience. I'm not sure if it's on the consoles, if it's on the Switch. I don't know.
It's on Vita. That's the only one I could see
The
that's on a
Vita.
console.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dig
That's
one
the
of
only
those up.
one. Yeah, because we had, I believe, one person in the Discord said they were playing it on the Vita,
Okay.
and I should ask basically how they enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's because I was originally assuming, and you should never assume, but I was originally assuming, oh, it's probably like on the PS4 and Xbox and Nintendo Switch, because all of them, all like indie games and everything, even like very
Usually.
PC, yeah, they're usually
Yeah.
there. It might not be the best experience, but they're there. But no, it's Android, iOS, Windows, and then Vita. So
That's what you
I
get.
can't imagine playing this on anything but a mouse and keyboard setup.
yeah, I want my two screens even too.
So much like the game itself, you missed that little detail, and you got a citation you got a Cartridge Club citation.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I enjoyed the game very much. So wonderful recommendation, Kevin and Richard. For if you went back and listened to that episode where they discuss all the nominations from their end before they recommended it to the Cartridge Club Patreon to be voted on. So wonderful recommendation.
Okay, good job, Dice.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's still lying around here. I never put anything away. I don't know. I guess I put that away.
For the month of September, the Cartridge Club's game of the month is Days Gone. For those of you who want to get a head start on October's game of the month, we'll be playing Doki Doki Literature Club. November's game of the month will be Assassin's Creed Black Flag. If you're interested in being a guest on the show, please reach out to us. We're always looking forward to having new community members on to talk about the games they love. To those of you interested in supporting the club beyond a review on the podcast app of your choice, I'd like to mention that the club is entirely funded by pledges made from members of our community. We are extremely grateful to those supporters, and if you're interested in becoming one of them, please look on how you can do so at patreon.com/Cartridge Club. But with that being said, that's the show, everyone. Kevin or Richard, you're both from the same podcast, but would you like to promote anything? Would you like to promote yourself where we can find you online?
Oh, you mean the fantastic podcast called Retro Fandango that you can get over on YouTube? It's myself and Richard, and basically the show. A lot of people might not know this, especially if you're new to the Cartridge Club, but we were the original spin-off show of the Cartridge Club way back when, and we did all sorts of like fun and games, and we had people on, and the show went on for hours, and we had so many listeners, and now we're down to just Richard and I catching up for about 90 minutes, just us talking.
No, to be fair, it's us catching up and Ryan coming in with Simpsons references.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the show now.
Yep.
And you know what? I couldn't be happier. It's just fun just to catch up with Richard every once in a while.
Oh, and I got some catching up to do. I got quite a few things to talk about. So the next episode of Retro Fandango, real banger.
Actually, if you're new to the show, this is the episode to jump on, because it's almost like a reboot. It's we've been away for a while, and we're coming back with a reboot, but it's all going to be the same reference. We're just going to reference old episodes of the show. It's not going to be new material. It's going to be like the new Beetlejuice. It's going to be the same jokes over again.
Well, it's what's that Simpsons episode where they just do the flashback episodes, right? So
right,
yeah. The clip show.
The clip show. There you go.
234th
or something.
37th, 4th episode extravaganza. Hosted by Troy McClure.
Yeah. Right.
That's what we are.
They haven't aged today, have they? Yeah. As for myself, you can find me on Twitter, Cartridge Club Discord at the handle of ItsRocketSauce, and as mentioned in the Retro Fandango chat for every live episode, I am the Sasquatch to the Tenacious D's.
Look at that!
Of Retro Fandango's Tenacious D, I am their Sasquatch.
I would upgrade you to Lee. You are
right.
You are Lee for sure.
With the Genesis Golf. But with that being said, that's the show, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. CC Unite.